Hello, welcome everybody. It's Matt from MSG Gaming Bob. Got a follow-up video for my Galazeth Prismari deck. This was the deck that I started. It was a budget deck for the league that Chicken Controller Magic runs over at their channel. If you're a patron over there, you get to participate in these leagues that happen each month. This month was any of the Elder Dragons, $100 for the budget for the first week, and you get $50 extra after that. This is the wrap-up of the final week of the summary of what the deck has evolved into over the course of 4 weeks. I did go 4-0, so that was pretty cool. Galazeth proved to be quite strong. A lot of the times I was even 3v1, and all of them were trying to stop me, and they couldn't. That was pretty cool. Galazeth proved to be more... I thought he would be too limited, because, you know, Urza's is obviously the master at, utilizing treasures and foods and stuff to cast stuff, because Urza has no stipulation. Galazeth is kind of like the fair Urza's in that it doesn't really have a ton of like infinite combos or anything, but it does have the access to red, which is pretty useful. There's a lot of red in here, actually. I mean, obviously a lot of burn, a lot of treasure generation, and you don't really get that in mono blue. So what I wanted to do is go through the final form of the deck at the $250 marker, and in the description below, you'll be able to find each week's budget. So the first one will be 100, then 150, then 200, then 250. There's 4 different versions of the deck. Depending on your budget, you guys can build whatever you like and take a look at the deck. And if you want to build it as it is, I mean, I would highly recommend it. Obviously, like I said, every game, it was very, very... Everyone, it was basically arch nemesis was me. You know, like, it was really fun. I don't know. I would say the only thing that I would warn against in a deck like this, and I think all of these decks kind of suffer from this, like the Veyrons and everything, it can be very solitarish, where your turns can last like 15-20 minutes of you, like, you know, drawing a bunch of cards, looking through what you have to play, weighing your options, doing everything in the right order. So your turns can turn out to be, you know, 15, 20, 25 minutes. Typically those are the turns you win. So, like, there are times where you could be like, all right, guys, I can basically get to the end. If you want me to play it out, I can do it. Otherwise, you know, it's fine. But, like, you'll learn the deck, and you'll know, like, once you have what's on the field, you'll be able to kind of build such an immense amount of value with gaining more treasures and being able to tap those treasures, and then, like, dramatic reversaling to be able to untap everything. Like, there's a lot of things that, like, kind of keep you going. And at a certain point, you can kind of tell when you're in that mode of like, okay, I can basically draw my entire deck. I can basically burn everybody out. If you want me to go through those motions, I'll do it. But otherwise, I've got it, I think. Of course, if they have no interactions. But anyways, so yeah, let's go through the deck. So this is how I like to do it. I like to go card by card. Get you guys zoomed in here. So Galazeth, if you want, I'm not going to go through every card in detail. I'm going to only really try to review the cards that I added in to make this video a little shorter. If you want like an in-depth of every single card, check out the first video, and I'll try to leave that in the description below. But I really want to try to make this less than 15 minutes or so, because this is more of just an update. So Galazeth, he can tap treasures, or he can tap any artifact for spells, for any color for spells. So basically, you're able to just utilize treasures in a way that you're not sacrificing them, you're just tapping the mana, so you actually can use, they're like sort of mana rocks for spells. That's the premise of Galazeth Prismari. The way I decided to build them is to go more of the treasure route. So that's what Galazeth does. Academy Manufactor, he's been in here basically every time you create a treasure, food, or clue. Mostly you're creating treasures, so then you're going to create a clue, a food, and a treasure. You get a lot of advantage from having this on the field. It's pretty insane. A lot of times it makes the stuff free. Archmage is just a draw engine for whenever you cast spells or copy them. Bergie is just a engine to gain mana every time you cast a singular spell. Again, this is one of those things where if you're casting a bunch of spells, you're able to kind of like make everything one cheaper, and then sometimes you cast things for free, and then you just gain mana. Yeah, pretty good card there. Goldspan Dragon was one of the entries into the last week. I did not get a chance to play it, but as you can imagine, Goldspan Dragon creates treasures as it just enters the battlefield, as it swings rather. But basically, it has flying haste, so ideally you're going to make it right away. So yeah, just treasure generation and just a good card. It allows you to like sacrifice your treasures to tap or double the mana. You can do that. It's just a lot of the times you're going to save the treasures for just tapping for the sorcerers and instants. But don't feel bad if you need to sack a treasure or two. As long as you have like a good generation of treasures, like stack a couple to like get things out, that's fine. Guttersnipe is one of the win conditions. You're going to be casting a lot of spells. There's not a ton of cantrips, but there's enough cantrips to where, like, you'll create 2 treasures, draw 2 cards, maybe you'll discard a card, and then you kind of keep this engine going. And Guttersnipe just kind of helps your damage over the course of the casting of the spells. Even if you play it like turn 3, it's pinging damage every time you do anything, every time you cast or draw cards. It's just a way to like kind of like whittle down their life totals so that when you do that burn spell, you don't have to do it for 30 mana. You can do it for 15 or 20, which sounds like a lot, but in Galazeth it's not. Loyal Apprentice. This card could be a card that you take out. In the league, it made a ton of sense for me, and it actually won me First Blood multiple games. First Blood is like the first person who does combat damage gets half a point. In the league, so in a normal game, this card might not be that useful. I could see cutting it for something better. Niv Mizzet was pretty awesome. He's been in the deck for, I think, ever since the first week, but it could have been maybe second week edition. With it only being $1.50, it's super cheap. It's one of the win-ish cons. It's sort of a win more card, so I almost took it out, but I decided to keep it in because it's kind of a pet card of mine. Niv Mizzet's a pretty cool guy. Stormcloud Artist is just insane. Every time you cast a spell or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a treasure token. The +1/+0, I would never really worry about that. He's a good blocker, but like he doesn't have any trample or evasion in this deck, so like you're never gonna like swing unless somebody leaves himself wide open. Then sure, I've done it. I've swung and hit somebody for 7 or whatever, but he can be pretty out of hand, but it's mainly for the Magecraft ability. The Magecraft ability replenishes tokens, and then with Academy Manufacturer out there, you're making 1 of each, and then it just becomes insane. Kind of one of those longer turns like I talked about. Veyron doubles all of those activations. If you cast an instant or sorcery spell, or you copy it, any ability that gets triggered from that gets doubled with Veyron on the field. There's plenty of Veyron actual decks out that you could play where Veyron's the commander. So they're fairly similar. With Galazeth, Veyron just helps. A very similar playstyle, I should say. Blasphemous Act was just a board wipe, just in case things get out of hand. Brass's Bounty was actually insane. Every single time you cast it, I mean, obviously with Academy Manufacturer, it becomes nutty as hell. Even if you just cast it by itself, it's normally an expensive card, but because you're able to cast instant sorcery spells with your treasures or your whatever, all your artifacts, it becomes a lot cheaper. So it just ramps a ton. Crack with Power is one of the win conditions. It's 5 times X, with the X different targets. So a lot of the times it's fairly easy to get 30 mana and just hit somebody for 40 damage. I think that's 30 damage for 30 mana for 40 damage, something like that. There's like a chart you could go find that helps you keep track of what X needs to be to deal 40 damage to 3 targets. But yeah, so one of the finishers there. Curse the Swine is a solid removal. It's Exile, which is nice. They get a 2/2. You don't care about the 2/2. Yeah, really solid card there. Expressive Iteration is just a nice draw cards type spell. Faithless Looting, another draw ditch. The draw ditch is useful because one of your win conditions is using Mizzet's Mastery, which allows you to exile every instant or sorcery card in your graveyard, and then you cast all of them for free. You make a copy of them, and then you cast them all. So obviously being able to ditch cards is great. Plus, it's 1 mana to draw 2 to then discard 2, so you're able to, when you have like Burgan in the field, it's basically free. If you have like Stormcloud Artist in the field, you create the treasure, but then if you have Academy Manufacturer, this 1 mana turns into 3 mana. So, it's those kind of things where like all of the synergy kind of lines up, and cards like Faithless Looting, not only does it help fill your graveyard with stuff, it also helps the other cards as well. Finale of Revelation, one of the best draw spells I think I've ever played. It's, at least in this style of deck, it's won me every game. Every game I've cast this, which I think has been every time, you're just getting so much value from, you're drawing a ton of cards, you have no maximum hand size, you untap 5 land, like all of those things in this kind of deck where you can actually ramp up that mana almost I would say very reliably. Even if somebody kills, I've had my Galazeth killed multiple times because they see the power. It didn't matter. So yeah, this card 100%, probably the golden pig of the deck, to be quite honest. Another JAJAM Emulating Inferno. This is another way to finish the game. It's specifically 3 targets, which is nice because you have 3 opponents. You typically just do this for however much their life total is, and ramping is not hard for spells and instants and sorceries. So yeah, pretty nice. Jessica's Will, another solid card. This is a really good ramp. It's really good. you draw, basically. Exiling the top 3 cards, you can play them, so you can play your lands from there. So make sure you, whenever you go to cast Jeskas, make sure you do Jeskas first before you play your land, as long as you can do. If you don't need the land drop to play Jeskas. Mana Geyser, this is another one of those cards. This is really like the second golden pig. So if you have a golden pig for draw, this is the golden pig for ramp. Like this on turn like 6, like it nets you like 18 mana. Like it's so good. Well, nets you, I guess, 15 mana, 13 mana. Either way, it ramps you a lot, is what I'm trying to say. And if anybody else ramps, this ramps you even better. Mana Geyser, nutty ramp. It allows you to get that Finale of Revelation for 10 or more, and it just great. Mrs. Mastery, this is the card I was talking about earlier. This is one of the win cons where you're able to I say it's a win con, but it's more about like accelerating yourself so far ahead that you're going to win, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you exile, if you overload it for 8, you exile each instant and sorcery in your graveyard, and you actually can cast them. You copy it and you cast it without paying its mana cost, which is really nice. It's nice that it counts as a cast, and it's nice that it's a copy. Those are relevant for certain cards. Pirate's Pillage, this is a great way to fuel your graveyard, but also you're typically drawing so many cards that you're like discarding lands to Pirate's Pillage and the things like Pirate's Pillage. So this doesn't have much of a downside. It basically costs 2 because you're going to be using like treasures and stuff to pay for it. So you create 2 treasures in place of it. So that's how, like I said, it's one of those things like you've got this engine going where you're just constantly creating value. It's pretty nuts. Ponder's just a nice draw spell. Preordain, another draw spell. Seize the Spoil, it's the same as Pirate's Pillage basically, but it's a little cheaper and it only creates 1 treasure. You're still ditching a card but drawing 2. Solve the Equation helps you get like Finale of Revelation, or if you need like if you have enough mana and you just need to get the burn spell to finish the game, you can do that. Solve the Equation is fantastic, super cheap, amazing uncommon. Yeah, very solid card. Striker Rich, this was a last edition in the last week of the deck. It probably should have been in there from the get-go. I was hesitant because it seems fairly like, you're only getting a single treasure for a mana. But like in these kind of decks where you're like you have so much value from casting spells, I think this probably should have been here from week 1. It's only 23 cents. It does amazing things. Got flashback, so if you want to discard it, you can do that as one of your discards, and you can flash it back for some value later on. Yeah, great card. Access denied. This has been there from week 1. Basically, if you're able to counter a spell and ramp, it's a pretty good card, right? All of these stoppages that you get are now basically mana rocks with Galazeth, so they're fantastic. Big Score, this is another addition that I added in the last week. It's an instant version of the Pirate's Pillage, basically. Probably should have also been in here since week 1, but it was a last edition. Probably swapped I don't know if you need all of them, but I don't know. It's pretty solid. Really good card. Blue Sun Zenith, this is also another addition in the last week. I was using Pull from Tomorrow, but I think the Blue Sun, even though it is 3 blue, for some reason I was hesitant for the 3 blue. Pull from Tomorrow has you discard a card at the end. This just for 1 more blue mana. You don't have to discard at all. So I'd almost rather have that, and it also allows you to shuffle this back in. If you need a shuffle, you can do that. So if you like Brainstorm, I guess that wouldn't work. If you need for some reason, if you need to shuffle, you can do it. You're gonna draw whatever you want to shuffle away, but yeah. Brainstorm, just more draw. Comet Storm, another one of those finishers. I have finished with Comet Storm, which is one of my pet cards from way back in the day. I loved Comet Storm when it came out. I just think multi-kicker is cool, and it's a multi-kicker burn spell, which is awesome. It's just very flexible, and I like that it's instant speed. It's a fantastic card. Confirm Suspicions, another one of those things where you counter spell and you ramp with Galazeth, being able to investigate 3 times. You can use your clues to draw cards, but then you can also use your clues for mana. It's fantastic. Counterspell, just a solid counterspell. Dramatic Reversal, this is one of those things where you're able to the deck does play Isochron Scepter after like week 3-ish or so. You could probably fit it in the week 2, but I think I waited till week 3 to have the Dramatic Reversal Isochron Scepter combo where you can get a ton of mana. It's not infinite in this deck because it's infinite depending on if you have like a Soul Ring out, but it's rarely infinite. You have to have like multiple mana rocks in order to make it an infinite, like unlimited mana. Whatever. But yeah, just a really solid card. You don't feel bad to like tap like 10 treasures and then like use Dramatic Reversal to untap all the 10 treasures, and then I know it sounds don't feel bad, but what I'm saying is like don't feel bad to use this to ramp to get that Finale of Revelation for 10 or more or whatever. It's worth it, I think. Very flexible card. Electro Dominance. This is another one of those things where like because it's an instant spell and it's a burn spell, if you want to play your Niv Mizzet or like your really expensive cards, but you don't want to play it and have it like wait around the table for the entire turn, what you can do is you can save your mana, wait until like it's about to be your turn again, and then Electro Dominance, and then play whatever you're trying to save. It could even be your like Stormkiln Artist or whatever. This allows you to kind of set something into play that gets around a lot of kind of evasion for whatever you're trying to play. It also just kind of catches people out of nowhere, where you burn something, so you kill whatever the thing is, kill like a solid creature, or you can kill or hit somebody in the face for a lot, and then just play something for free. It's fantastic. Expansion. I've never used Explosion, or I'm sorry, I've never used Expansion really, because it's 4 mana or less. I mean, you could do it. Typically, like Mizzic's Master will force you to do it because you won't be able to Explosion for any of the mana costs, but you can Expansion because it's only 2. So it's okay, but mainly it's for Explosion, dealing X damage to any target, and then your target player draws X cards. So this is pretty standard removal and draw. Frantic Search, another one of those things where this has a little bit of synergy with the one land. There's the enchantment that flips into a land that taps for a blue for all your artifacts. That with this, it becomes nutty. I think there's one other synergy that it has where you can untap that land. There's something else in here that untaps lands that makes it nuts. But yeah, Frantic Search is mainly just draw, ditch, and untapping 3 lands that makes it free. So if you're searching for like a counter spell, or if you're searching for a combo, or even if you're just doing this to like gain treasures with Galazeth or whatever, just a solid draw, and it's basically free. It's a cantrip in a way. Galvanic Iteration, this one's solid because it has flashback, so if it's ever something that you need to discard, you can do it. You can discard it to any of the draw spells that you're playing, because most of them have a discard clause. But it also allows you to, for just 2 mana, you can play Galvanic Iteration and then do one of your burn spells. If you don't have enough mana to do it, to kill everybody with 1 burn spell, with 2 more mana, you could just spend 2 less on the burn spell, but then double the burn spell, so you might be able to get there with that. You can even do it with things like the Pirate's Pillage or whatever to draw cards. You don't have to pay the extra cost for discarding the card for the copy, so you can get some value from that. So yeah, pretty solid card there. Hornswoggle is just a great named counterspell for a creature. A lot of times you can counter their like commander or counter like a degenerate creature, and then you also ramp a little bit. Mystical Tutor, this was an addition later on. This was added in. It's like $17, but again, it's one of those things where at the end of somebody's turn, just before it becomes your turn, you can get the exact card you need. Tutors are obviously very strong. Negate, just a solid counterspell. Pongify, good removal. Prismari Command, it has a very wide array of things you can use. It is an instant spell, which is nice. So I mainly use it for the draw 2, ditch 2, and creating a treasure. These are like the 2 modes that I almost always pick. But I could see sometimes needing to kill something that's 2 mana or 2 toughness, or destroying an artifact. I think I did destroy an artifact on the last week. I think I might have like draw ditched and destroyed an artifact. Rapid Hybridization, just another more removal. Reinterpret is actually pretty nutty. Another one of those things where you can counter something that's large and then play something large from your hand for free. Not only do you counter the spell, but you also get the free thing. It's just pretty nutty. Reiterate, this has an infinite combo depending on the situation with Jessica's Will. But otherwise, if you just have enough mana from just Galazeth in general, just being Galazeth, the way the deck works, you can almost entirely buy back this every time just because you have so much mana. So this becomes a pretty awesome spell. Very flexible. Resculpt is just solid removal. Spell Swindle. This thing is probably one of the best counter spells in the deck because it cares about the mana value. So you counter the spell, but then you also create treasures equal to the spell's mana value. So last week, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd week, I countered somebody's commander, which was 7. So I countered his commander, and I got 7 treasure. Like it's just a massive blowout. Like it's kind of feels bad for that person, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what the game is designed this way. So take advantage to your highest. They're going to take advantage of all their stuff in their deck. So yeah. And yeah, this is just a nutty card. Swung Song, just a really cheap, awesome counter spell. Unexpected Windfall, another one of those instant discard, draw 2 cards, create a treasure. Just Pirate's Pillage, but instant speed. Valakut Awakening. This is just a nice land / draw card. It's a nice filter to get cards out of your draw better cards. Arcane Signature, just ramp. Howling Mine. This is a one-sided Howling Mine as long as it Galazeth's on the field. You just tap it for a blue on your turn and then pass the turn, and then when it untaps on your turn, you'll draw the 2 cards because it's now untapped. So yeah, the only thing that sucks is that, like, say you play Howling Mine and somebody kills Galazeth, now everybody's drawing 2 cards because you have no way to untap it once it goes back to your turn. If you're able to replay Galazeth and then tap it again, you're cool. But I had it happen once, and it wasn't that big a deal, honestly. Most of the time it's one-sided, and I think it's valuable enough for yourself to have it in there in case those things happen. Icecrown Scepter, this is just really, really solid for mainly dramatic reversal. But I think, if I remember correctly, I put a draw spell of some sort underneath it, maybe like a Preordain or something. Just because I was like running low on draw, and I needed a way to draw and make sure I'm continuing to draw. So I think I decided to go against my normal like waiting for a Icecrown Scepter and the dramatic reversal combo, and I was like, you know what? Having a Preordain for 2 mana at any time you want is pretty good. So, you know, don't feel so bad about being able to or not being able to. It's only instant spell, so maybe it was Brainstorm. Either way, it was still valuable. Lightning Greaves, just a way to protect your commander, or even, like, you know, Stormkill Artist or whatever. But most of the time it's your commander, because if your commander goes, almost your entire strategy goes. Noble's Purse has been in here since 1. It's fantastic. It allows you to just ramp. You get treasures for free, and then after all the coin counters are removed, it still taps for mana. It's pretty great. Primal Amulet. This was another addition later in the last week. This allows you to play your instant sorcery spells for 1 less colorless. And then if you want to, after the 4th spell, you can flip it over and it becomes a land that basically is like the, Pyromancer's Goggles. It copies whatever spell is cast with this mana. So pretty solid. A lot of the times you won't remove it. You won't flip it. You don't have to flip it. You may. But it depends on what situation you're in. I would say most of the time you want the reduction, because once you flip it, you lose that cost reduction. So if you have a ton of mana, feel free to flip it, so you can copy some spells. If not, then keep it untapped or unflipped, untransformed. Soul Ring's just mana ramp. Soul Guide Lantern's just gravity removal. The nice thing about this is, with Galazeth, is it's a cantrip basically. You pay a mana to play it, but then it counts as a mana. You can tap it normally for like Galazeth abilities. Just know that both of the abilities for it are tap abilities, but don't get into the trap where tap this for mana, but then you can't like exile the graveyard or want to draw a card or whatever. Can't do that. Can't do both. Talisman's just ramp. Unwinding Clock is fantastic. All of your treasures, your foods, any artifacts you have, untap at the each other's untap step. Pretty strong. It's a $15 card, so it came in the last week. It's maybe a more of a win more card, because if you have like 10 or 15 treasures out, or artifacts in general, like, you're probably gonna end up winning anyways. But I could see this being value if you get this early on. It'll probably get removed pretty quick though. Witching Well is just a really solid. Comes into play as an artifact. You scry 2. But then it counts as a mana rock for your instant sorceries as long as Galazeth's out. And then if you don't need it, you can tap it for a mana to use for instant sorcery spells, and then use 4 mana other lands or whatever, and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. So you can like kind of float some mana. Curse of Opulence, I think, was added in week 3, maybe week 2. But yeah, every time you attack an opponent, you get a gold, and then other opponents do the same thing. So not only does this entice your opponent to attack that person, but you also benefit from the gold. And gold is better than treasures. Gold can be sacrificed. It doesn't have to have tap. You can actually tap it for a mana, and then sack it as well for a mana. So gold has like a double purpose. So this is like one of the easiest ways to get gold. Gold is fairly rare, which is smart, because gold would be insane. This is an enchantment I was talking about, Storm the Vault. As long as you have 5 or more artifacts at the end, you transform it, and then it becomes either taps for a mana of any color or tap blue for each artifact you control. Obviously, you can imagine that tapping for blue for every artifact you control is pretty strong. Trail of Evidence, really solid enchantment. Every time you cast an instant sorcery spell, you create a clue token. You can imagine this gets really out of hand with Academy Manufactor. It makes anything less than 3 mana free, and anything even less, like 2 and 1, becomes a value, like you actually gain your ramping. So yeah, Trail of Evidence is really, really good. Plus you can crack those clues. Academy of Ruins was placed in there. Not 100% sure it's worth putting in here as a colorless land. I wanted to keep it for like, in case like Iskard Scepter got destroyed, or like maybe a Soul Ring or whatever. It's just it's a solid get back card. Academy Manufacturer is the same thing, kind of like a way to like reoccur them. They get removed, you can put it back on top and then cast it again. So it's probably worth it. You don't really have too many color problems. There's not that it's not that like hard to get the colors you need, especially with the mana base being mostly basics. It's still, I've never had a problem with mana colors, because Galazeth can tap for whatever. All of the artifacts can tap for whatever color they need to be. So I guess that kind of helps there. And then I think these are all just lands. Darkshale Citadel, it's one of those things. It's an artifact land. It is indestructible, which is nice. But it is an artifact land, so you can tap for any color for instant sorceries, but it is a colorless land itself, so this could be removed, but it's okay. This, again, is in place of a basic land, so this is fine. It's an artifact land, so you can tap for any color for your sorceries. Otherwise, it's just for red. It's kind of a dual purpose. Inventor's Fair is a very, very good card. Being able to go get your combo pieces, like your Ice-Crown Scepter, or even if you go get a Soul Ring, it's fine. Gaining the 1 life at the beginning of each upkeep is also really, really nice. Yeah, just a really cool card. These are basic lands, and Mystic Sanctuary just gets an artifact, or I'm sorry, instant sorcery from your graveyard as long as you have 4 islands, including. And Reliquary Tower for no max hand size, Seed of Synod for the same as the other artifact land, dual land, and then back to Galazeth. So in conclusion, Galazeth turned out to be probably one of the funnest, besides I would say Volo. Volo would be number 1. I'm ranking my previous commander decks. Volo would be number 1, Galazeth number 2 for sure. Kinnan was super strong, but it was kind of boring in how it did it. So it wasn't that fun to play. It was just like, okay, I win. It was just kind of, I don't know. Galazeth, you do a bunch of stuff and you win. Volo, you do a bunch of stuff and then you win. So it just kind of feels better. It feels like you're actually playing the game. Kinnan feels like you're kind of just cheating. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed it. The deck was super, super fun. I'll probably revisit these decks that I like the Volo and the Galazeth. I'll probably revisit them with a no-budget limit. There's a couple decks that I want to do that with. So, yeah. If you liked it, like the video. If you didn't like it, dislike the video. Make sure to comment and say why you liked it or why you didn't like it. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.